I think I've got that right. I'm going to wire it up. I'm going to do some tests and then we'll see if it works properly or if I need to do something else. But it's just taken me a little while to get my head around how to wire a frost stat up in series with the pipe stat, because we don't want it to go around the heating circuit. So we're basically not wiring into the heating zone valve. We just want to wire it into the primary circuit of the boiler. Enough waffling, let me do it and then we'll come back and we'll test it and see if I've done it right or if I've messed up. I've probably messed it up, but we'll see. How are you doing, everyone? Welcome back to today's video. Now, you might notice I've got a power flush machine sat behind me. Don't worry, this is not a power flush video. I'm doing a power flush today. The weather's not so bad, so I've been sitting out here editing a video whilst I'm power flushing, and I'm just recording the intro video. So this job that, not this job, the job that you're going to see next is a wiring job. Quite an interesting one. Quite an interesting one, because it's the first time I've ever worked on wiring up a frost stat and a pipe stat. I've heard of it before, I've never done it myself before, and I had to basically find a workaround to stop the heat going around the whole system, but just keep the boiler satisfied. I'll explain it all in the video as it progresses. I hope the wind isn't too much. I haven't got the dead cats on me because I didn't think I was going to be doing this intro out here. But have a watch of the video. Let me know if you feel that you found it interesting, or if there's something else that I could have done differently, if I've done it right or whatever. Leave a like, leave a comment. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you all on the next one. Thanks for watching and enjoy. Right, so I've got quite an interesting wiring job here to do today. There's a heat only glow on boiler up in the loft, and there's a frost stat there which is linked into the heating zone valve. It's on an S-plan system. Now that frost stat, when it was really cold and it was getting down to about 5 degrees, it kept bringing the boiler on and it kept circulating heat around the heating system. So obviously where the boiler is located, it's a lot colder than what it would be in the house, and the customer doesn't want the heating to be running all the time. But we obviously need to make sure that the pipes don't freeze, and we need the frost stat to still be active. So what I'm here to do today, I'm helping out another engineer. They've spoken to Glowworm, and Glowworm have advised them that you can rewire the frost stat in a way so that it only goes to the switch live on the boiler, and the boiler will fire up, but the heating will only go around the bypass circuit. So because, drop the screwdriver, that's fine. Because we've got the bypass here and the boiler is up in the loft, it's quite a fairly big circuit. So we don't need the whole of the house to get hot, but we just need to make sure that the pipework in the loft doesn't freeze or anything like that. So the plan is, I'll take you upstairs in the loft in a minute and show you how the boiler and the frost stat and everything is set up. But what I've done so far, I've just done a little bit of tracing of what wires are what, and trying to get my head around how I can rewire this to make it work so that the boiler will fire up when the frost stat is calling, but it's not going to heat up the whole house. It's just going to circulate around the primary flow line returns to make sure that that pipework in the loft space doesn't freeze. So this is the airing cupboard here, obviously. We've got 2 wiring centers. So there's a smaller wiring center here, which is basically, let me get some lights on. There we go. So we've got one wiring center here, which is like a junction box. So those 3 cables coming from up there, they're coming from the loft space. So I've identified them as the one on the far left is the pump live cable. The one in the middle is the power supply to the boiler itself, live earth and neutral, and switch live. And the one on the right hand side is the frost stat wire. Now, let me grab this again just so I can do a little bit of pointing. So from here, the one on the far left is our frost stat cable. The one on the right is the pump cable. So that is our common going to the frost stat. That's our switch live coming back from the frost stat. That's then coming down from here. So that one on the right hand side coming on the bottom is our frost cable. That, if you follow it down, comes around here and it goes into the main wiring center. Now, into the main wiring center, what I've found is that's our permanent feed. So that's a permanent live linked into there with the grays on the 2 ports, and obviously permanent live from here. And we've got another permanent live feed going there. So that's powering the common on the frostat. That's powering the permanent live to the boiler. So that's that big thick cable here, which is this middle one here, which goes into here. You've got the red, which links to this red here, which is this middle one here, which then goes back up to the boiler and giving it a permanent supply. I'm just seeing, is there a switch live? Okay, so I've just noticed that there's no switch live going back to the boiler. That's strange. So the oranges, we've got this brown. Oh yeah, no, there must be. Which is this brown here, which is, hang on, is that right? Right, what we've got here, we've got that brown, which is coming off of there. So I'm doing this on the fly, so you might have to bear with me a bit as well. So that's our switch live going into this. So from here, there would be another, here we go, yeah. So that brown there, apologies about the lighting, is then linked to this brown, which makes sense. That's going back to the boiler. So yeah, we do have a switch live here as well. I thought I was going a bit crazy, but I'm not. What else? Pump. So the pump cable is this one here, which is one on the far left. So that's obviously we've got a live earth and neutral. So that's our pump live going back to the pump live terminal on the boiler. So I've identified what's going on here, and I've identified what's going on in here. So where I've traced this cable back here, this is coming from the frostat. So we've got common, which is wired into the permanent live there. The blue there, which is our switch live from the frostat, that's wired into this terminal where it's linked to this red here. Now that red is actually our switch live back from the room thermostat downstairs. And if I follow the other cables from here, we've got brown coming from here, which is linked to this red here. Now that red comes from number 4 on the twin channel programmer, so that's central heating on. So what happens at the moment, you turn the central heating on from here, that comes onto this terminal here, which sends power down to the common on the room stat. When you turn the room stat up, that will bring power up to this red terminal, this red cable. That red cable will send power to this brown, which is on the heating 2 port. That will motor over, that will open up, send power down the switch live, up this brown wire, through that cable, blah, 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 from here back to the boiler and get to fire up. But what I need to do now is upstairs, I need to wire the frostat in series with a pipe stat. Set the frostat to, let's say, 5 degrees, set the pipe stat to 25 degrees, which is what it says in the MIs. And then that the pipe stat, I need to bring that cable back down here. Well, I won't need to bring a cable. I'll be able to use the old frostat cable from here, bring that down. But instead of wiring the switch live from the pipe stat into the heating zone valve, I'm going to wire it straight into the switch live terminal of the boiler, which in theory, I should be able to do it all up at the boiler, because I don't think I'll need to do anything here. So I might actually be able to disconnect everything from here and then just wire the frostat into the pipe stat in series, which will then go into the switch live to the boiler, not into any zone valves. Boiler will fire up, the pump live will come on, so the pump will come on, and then the boiler should just literally circulate down the flow, through here, around the bypass, and back up the return back to the boiler. and it should keep that little circuit satisfied. So in theory, it's pretty straightforward. In reality, let's find out. Right, this is the boiler space that we're working in. Right, let's get over here. So there's our frost-stat, that's our boiler. So F&E tanks up there, got pipes and cables, they're all running back down to there. So the airing cupboard is literally just down there, and all these wires are coming back up here. So we've traced everything to here now. So Glowworm's got its own little wiring center there as well. So I know what I need to do in there. I know what I need to do in here. I'm just trying to figure out whether it'll be easier for me to just do all the wiring here and wire it directly into the boiler, or do it downstairs in the wiring center. I haven't quite decided yet. I'm going to just open up the frost-stat and stuff and then have a look and then make a decision and then go from there really. So yeah, let's try and do some wiring. Right, just working my way around wiring this in series with the frost-stat. So first I thought maybe the frost-stat might be faulty, but it's not, because right now in my van today it showed 15 degrees. This at the moment, so that's clicking probably, I'd say around maybe 12ish degrees, which makes sense. So up in the loft is probably going to be a little bit colder than it is in my van or on the outside temperature. So that's fine. We know that the frost-stat's working. So I need to now, looking at these wiring diagrams on the pipe stat and the frost-stat, to wire it into series. Obviously we're going to need a permanent live feed going to the common. The switch live from the frost-stat will then go into number 1 on the pipe stat, which is what it shows here. And then as the temperature drops on the pipe stat, that will make with the common on there, which will then go back down to our switch live in the wiring center, or I'll wire it straight into the switch live to the boiler here. Because what's meant to happen is this pipe stat has got to work in the opposite way that a cylinder stat would work. So I always get a little bit bamboozled with this bit. So when the temperature drops is when we want the connections to make, so that's then going to send power to the switch live, which is right. So at the moment that's turned all the way down. So if I put my continuity test on there, right now I'm not getting anything. But if that temperature drops, sorry, that's making now. So at the moment that's reading about, on, if you look at where it's pointing now, that's on minimum. If I turn it up, that's going to be sitting at about 25 degrees there. So right now, because it's less than 25 degrees, that will be cooling, and that would be sending power to the boiler, telling it to come on until that temperature is going to hit 25 degrees on the pipe, and then it will kill the demand. But that will only come on if that's cooling. So if that's set to 5 degrees, that's not going to cool at the moment. It's only when that temperature drops to below 5 degrees, it will then cool this, which will then get the boiler to fire up, get it to circulate the heat around, and once it senses that the temperature on the return pipe has hit 25 degrees, it will kill the demand on the boiler, because that's satisfied. That can keep cooling, but the boiler doesn't need to continuously run, because it's now going to monitor the temperature of the pipe work to make sure, as long as we've got 25 degrees, it's not going to freeze. I think I've got that right. I'm going to wire it up, I'm going to do some tests, and then we'll see if it works properly or if I need to do something else. But it's just taken me a little while to get my head around how to wire a frost stat up in series with the pipe stat. because we don't want it to go around the heating circuit. So we're basically not wiring into the heating zone valve. We just want to wire it into the primary circuit of the boiler. Enough waffling, let me do it, and then we'll come back and we'll test it and see if I've done it right or if I've messed up. I've probably messed it up, but we'll see. Okay, so I've got everything wired up here. I've not closed it all up, so don't shoot me. I'm not going to leave it like this. I've taken permanent live and neutral from this fan isolator switch, which is bringing our permanent supply in from the wiring center. Taken another live and neutral feed into our frost stat here. So the live is going into the common, neutral is going into number 2, and then the switch, which is number 3, this brown cable here, that's then going into number 1 on the pipe stat. So that's what it says on here. Essentially, it doesn't matter whether it goes into number 1 or if it goes into common, because the pipe stat is just going to be a switch. So now when that cools, that's going to send power down the blue, which is a common there, which is then the old switch live from the frost stat, which downstairs was going into the brown for the heating zone valve. What's down? But I've now moved that over straight into the oranges, which is the switch live straight back to the boiler. And when the boiler gets the switch live, that should also power the pump live inside the boiler, which would bring the pump on, not open any zone valves, and allow the boiler to basically just fire and circulate around the primary circuit. So before I put all this back together, I'm going to power it up. I'm going to test it, make sure it does work how it's supposed to work, and we'll go from there. Right, power is on downstairs. So now, firstly, if I test with my voltage tester, we should be getting power on there, which we are. Not getting anything on the switch, which is fine. But now, as I turn it up, he says trying to do it one-handed. Okay, so now I've got power on the switch. So that's now powering my number 1 terminal on the pipe stat. Obviously, everything's off on there at the moment, but now if I turn this pipe stat up, got power there. Boiler has just fired up. There we go. Claire's the pump come on? Yeah. She just told me the pump's come on. So boiler is now going to start circulating around the... Is it on, yeah? Sorry? Cool, the zone valves are shut. Boiler's come on. It's going to be circulating around the bypass, around the flow and returns. And once this was to get satisfied, once I strap it back onto the return pipe, it will basically monitor the temperature, and then it will tell the boiler to turn off when the water or temperature in the pipes are satisfied. So yeah, it works. Job done. Right, so before I close this all up, just to do one final little explanation of what I've done. So that wire there, let me bring this neck light up so you can see it a bit better. Hopefully it doesn't blind anyone. So that brown there is redundant now. That was the old permanent live feed going to the common on the frost stat. So that's been taken out because I've now taken that permanent live feed from the switch under the boiler. This blue here, which was the old switch live from the frost stat, that was wired into this terminal here, which was linked, which was actually the switch live from the room stat and linked to the brown on the heating zone valve. I've taken that blue out of there and moved it into here, which is now just a switch live back to the boiler along with the zone valves as well. So what will happen now, when the frost stat comes on and the pipe stat comes on, only then will this energize, send power onto there. And you see the pump's just gone off as well because that was on pump over on. So because that's wired into the pump live on the boiler, that will come on and off when the boiler tells it to, and obviously even when the demand goes off, because I've turned the stats down now, or turned the stats to where they should be, the pump over on carries on for a few minutes and then stops. But now we've got it so that literally when it gets too cold up in the loft, we'll get a switch live to the boiler, pump will come on, and it's just circulating around the primary circuit. So it's coming down the primary flow through the bypass and back to the boiler, just to make sure that the pipes stay warm enough to prevent them from freezing, and the rest of the house isn't going to get roasting hot now either. So now I'm just going to close everything up because it's all been tested, it's all been working, and get on to the next one. Right, next job, I'm going to just be swapping out this limescale reducer. It's got myself a new one here. You guys might remember this job from one of my previous videos where there used to be an ideal logic here, which I've done a few repairs on. I added in this zone valve, a new thermostat, and a wiring center to make this run on S-Plan, because it's in a shop and they've got heating upstairs and downstairs is split or whatever. But the boiler basically needed replacing, and I gave them a quote, but landlord went with a large, well-known firm who drive around in blue vans. They were more expensive than me, but because they were able to offer finance, it seemed a more cost-effective option for the landlord, which is fine. I can't obviously offer finance, so that's absolutely fine. But come on, you're gonna charge more than an independent person. At least put a new filter on. That's the filter that was on the old one. Scale reduces the old same one. I'm now here to change this. Obviously chargeable work, but it's just, come on, you could have done a better job than that if you were going to be charging more than me. It is what it is. Let's just get this limescale reducer changed and get on to the next job. Hey Cal, do you want to turn the water back on for me? Cheers. Right, let's test this. Water's back on. I've got tap running, so just gonna let it all air out. Right, shut this tap. Cool, lovely jubbly, no leaks. Job done.